of a series of ups and downs. From Atari to Nintendo to Sony to Sega, there's so many video game companies that have gone through rises and falls, empires falling, and new creations rising from the ashes. But one of the most interesting video game companies that comes to my mind when I think of that is the Telltale video game company. Now, a lot of people get this information wrong. Most people think that the first video game that Telltale ever released was their critically acclaimed Walking Dead, now known as Season 1, but when it first came out, it was just The Walking Dead. But believe it or not, Telltale had a lot of video games that came out before the Walking Dead series. The one that most people remember would be the Back to the Future game, which was okay. There was the Jurassic Park game that I don't think anyone's ever talked about ever. There was a bunch of Sam and Max games and 2 poker video game simulators. And it's important to know that while some of these games you could go back and play and find genuine enjoyment, none of them were necessarily great. And even now, Telltale can be rather hit or miss. I'm looking at you, Minecraft. But I don't want to focus on the shortcomings or the humble beginnings of Telltale. I want to focus on its flagship series, the one that really made them a video game company, The Walking Dead. Now, the first game came out in the year 2012, when The Walking Dead series was reaching its peak in popularity. Now, to be fair, a lot of people do still read the comics and watch the series as it airs on television, but the series has admittedly become rather stale after its 3rd season, and fans are starting to get really annoyed. But back in 2012, ooh, The Walking Dead was the biggest thing on television, besides Breaking Bad, of course. And naturally, companies were going to make video games to capitalize off of the success of the series. Now, everyone knows the Telltale series, and then there's that crappy first-person shooter called Survival Instinct that no one ever played ever because it was terrible. But Telltale was something special when it first came out. It was very reminiscent of point-and-click adventure games where you would go around, touch objects, put things in your pocket, and then use them later to solve puzzles, if you can call them that, to move on to the next section of story. And now the gameplay for Telltale games, even today, can be rather mediocre, but that's not why we play these games. We don't play them to pick up itty bits of random crap and use it later. No. We play for the story. And for most of the Telltale games, the story is really good. Now, to pull back to The Walking Dead Season 1 when it first came out in 2012, no other game at the time had that kind of story. The story was heartwarming, dark, depressing, hopeless, but yet showing that little glimmer of hope that I think a lot of people can relate to. And of course, the story wasn't just the only gimmick that Telltale tried to use. They used a series of choices that you would make in the game, and these choices, what they would do is they would shift the story to certain endings or certain character arcs or certain characters dying quicker or slower or what have you. Now, the best way to describe the first season of Telltale games, and the best way to describe most of the Telltale games now, it's kind of like Pandora's box. You know, once you open it and you see the story for the first time, you're just blown away with how incredible everything is. You're blown away by the art, the characters, the suspense, the choices. But then when you go back to replay it, you start to realize that your choices don't really have that much of an impact. The best example about Season 1 is the first hard choice that you have to make in the game. So what you need to do is you need to choose whether to save this dude that you don't care about or the super hot chick named Carly that everyone picked because she was the chick. And now you can choose either of those characters, and the other character will die, and the surviving character will follow you in the story. But no matter who you pick, they get shot in the face and die no matter what. And that's kind of frustrating when the game claims, but your choices will shape the story, and your choices matter. Ooh. But they really don't. At least in Season 1, they don't. Now, the big dramatic twist about Season 1 was that the character you play as, Lee, gets bit by a zombie and then dies. And there's no way to avoid him getting bit. There's no way to avoid his death. He has to die for the story to continue. And that kind of sucks, but it's kind of beautiful at the same time, because Lee, throughout the game, is protecting this sweet little girl named Clementine. And hold on, I'll be real with you for a sec. I think Clementine's adorable. Like, any choice through any of the games that she's in where the option is to, like, hug her, I'm just like, I want hugs too. And she's really sweet, and her character arc is so great throughout the whole series. The whole series. In one, she's a little child and doesn't really do much. But as a player, and as Lee, you want to protect her. And you die protecting her, and it's super heroic and tragic, and, you know, you start to cry, and, oh, it's just so good. But to be fair, it is only good the first time you experience it. Then when you realize, oh, Lee dies no matter what, the death kind of loses impact. So the first Telltale series did incredibly well, despite some of the shortcomings that it has developed since it has aged. And of course, it made a Season 2. It had a second game within the same universe, following the same characters that actually survived the first season. The biggest one being, of course, Clementine, who is now the playable character. And similar to Season 1, you start to think that your choices really don't have that much of an impact, especially when, you know, characters die no matter what, or characters don't like your choice no matter what. But Season 2 did do something a bit interesting. It changed the ending. Within Season 2 of The Walking Dead, what happens is you have to choose to whether side with Jane, who is a new character that you just met in this season, who we see is fairly level-headed, a loner, but level-headed, or the personal favorite, Kenny. Now, Kenny was a character that was actually in the first season of the Telltale Walking Dead game, who we assumed was dead, but then came back in Season 2. And the moment when Clem and Kenny meet, and you have like that choice what to do, I always go for give Kenny a hug, because it's just so sweet. And Kenny admittedly starts to lose his mind. He loses his family in Season 1, he loses the new family that he makes in Season 2, and he does get his eye beat out by a douchebag. So Kenny has gone through some shit. But the thing about Kenny, and the important thing about Kenny, is that Kenny was right. See, Jane wants to go back to this facility where you were as a prisoner, but everyone else is dead after the zombies came in and killed everyone. But Kenny wants to go up north to where there's like ice and snow and the zombies can't move, to this super fortress that doesn't exist. Aha! But if you follow the Kenny route, which you should, it's there. But then, that choice with Kenny splits off into two choices. So, the one choice, you actually get to leave Kenny behind, and he goes out in the wilderness to survive on his own and presumably die, whereas Clementine takes this baby and goes into the fort to live. Or what you can do is you can say screw that, and you take these supplies and you go off with Kenny in the distance all heroic like. That was a nice touch. The true focus of today's video is not Season 1, not Season 2, but Season 3 of the Walking Dead Telltale series. It's funny how the first game received so much critical acclaim. The second game did fairly well, you know, a lot of people liked it, but very few people who I've talked to even realized that the third game came out. And I never really saw, like, any popular videos on it or anyone talking about it too much, so I didn't think it was going to be that much. But what's interesting about the third season is as far as, like, the choice mechanic, this one's definitely the best. Now, the story is what you'd expect from a Walking Dead game. You are the family man, Uncle Javi, or Javier, a disgraced baseball player who had issues with gambling and got removed from the league. And the opening scene of the game is like the day of the zombies when they first started. And your father finally dies of cancer, and your brother's being a huge douche because you got stuck in like the really long traffic that you saw in like the beginning of the first game, and you're still like, oh, you're my brother, you're supposed to be there for dad, blah, 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 blah. And the brother's like, boss, come on, man, like, I don't want to fight nobody, I tried to do my best. And then, you know, the game starts. And then, of course, the dad turns into a zombie and bites the grandma, and everyone freaks out. And so they go to the hospital, and then Uncle Avi takes his brother's wife, and then his two children, the brother's two children, and leaves. And so the game takes place many, 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 many years after the initial outbreak. This is shown, of course, by Clementine aging, who does make an appearance into the game and is one of the main characters, although you can't play as her, and she doesn't necessarily follow you around, but she is in a lot of key scenes within the game. And so, like the other Walking Dead games, the story is super fun. The gameplay is mediocre at best, but it ties the story together very, very nicely. And the choice mechanic, the making choices, has a lot more of an impact than it did in Season 1 and Season 2. Because all your decisions from the previous games, so that's Season 1 and Season 2, carry over. And I was floored when I saw that. So, like, depending on which ending you pick with Clementine, it depends on her backstory, her character, and how she'll treat other characters, and then like other key choices in the game. And I was like, holy crap, dude, that's incredible. Now, I don't know if Telltale planned this from the beginning of the first Walking Dead game, but I can say that's really smart to do something like that carries over your decisions from Season 1 and Season 2 into Season 3, and having different outcomes that can change the story drastically. And that was really impressive. So points to them for that. And so throughout the game, the choices you make can drastically alter the ending and how certain characters of the game end up. Whether or not you side with the wife or the children or strictly Clementine can change who lives and who dies at the end of the story. And I do like that mechanic. However, I don't like how the game tricks you. So there's choices in the game where you can either side with Clementine or betray Clementine. And if you betray Clementine once, she won't forget it, and she won't forgive you. And because she won't forgive you, she alters the ending drastically. So the last episode, the very last scene before, the big dramatic zombie fight or whatever. So Javier is with Kate, who is his brother's wife, who you can choose to have a relationship or not. And to be fair, she's kind of cute, so, I went with the whole, I'm in love with your wife, bro. So you can either, A, go save the city with your new girlfriend or wife or whoever, your new significant other, or you can go leave your wife and go and save your brother and your nephew who have, gone off to be all angsty and pissy or whatever. And if you had Clementine side with you, if you protected Clementine and had her completely on your side, she will help you no matter which one that you choose. But, depending on your choice, the person you don't save will die. And to be fair, I think that adds to the story greatly. So my choice was to go with the wife. I was 100% faithful with Clementine, and Clementine helped me save her. And that was awesome. But then when you go to protect the brother and you find the nephew, the brother is dead, he's turned into a zombie, and then the nephew is bitten and dying. And you have to either shoot him or let him turn. It's like the Season 1 kind of ending. But I found out later that to get the best ending, the one where everyone's all happy, you have to betray Clementine. And to me, that really sucks, because we have seen Clementine through not just one, but 2 other games, with the second her being the playable character. Of course I'm going to be incredibly attached to Clementine, and of course, knowing what she's been through and her experiences, you're going to side with her more than you would want to betray her. And I think that's the one bad thing that I don't like about The Walking Dead Season 3. It just tricks you into getting an ending that is tragic. And to be fair, the good ending is not really that great. The brother lives and then the nephew lives and you're all a big happy family. And it's just kind of, it doesn't feel like a Walking Dead story. But when, I went to side with the girlfriend who is now, left the brother, is now with you, if you go that route. She lives, but then the nephew dies, and it just had such good character development, because, he says goodbye to Clem, and he gives her a deck of cards that they were playing, and it's really touching and tragic, and I like that ending better. I think that ending fits the world of The Walking Dead more than the everyone gets to live. And that's kind of why I think the ending of the second season, where you had to choose who lived and who died, it had more of an impact that way. But what I am excited for is the next game. Because the next game is Walking Dead, the final season, Season 4, playing as Clementine, and it's gonna be good. I feel that's gonna be great, and I can't wait to get my hands on it. So in conclusion, the Walking Dead Telltale series is an awesome game series. It starts off great, and the sequels, I feel, add on to what made the first one great. But with not so great marketing, seasons 2 and 3 kind of fell short in comparison to the monolith that was the first game series. They are definitely worth your time, and I highly recommend that you give these games a play. The replay value is not that great, but you can get like the whole game, like the whole first couple of games for like $30, and you'll have like, 20 hours of gameplay. And there's a lot of enjoyment to be had from that series. So I think it's worth checking out. Telltale may not have started off with the greatest games, but now I think they're really showing their true potential. Alright everybody, thank you guys so much for watching. This has been another episode of Kirk Talk, and I will see you guys in the next one.